everybody, welcome back to the Little Miss Funeral YouTube channel. My name is Lauren Leroy and I am a licensed funeral director in the state of New York. If this is the first time that you're visiting my channel, I just want to say welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you are coming back again for more, I wanted to say thank you again to you all too. I truly do appreciate all of your support. So for today's video, I wanted to elaborate on a topic that I did mention in last week's video if you happen to see it, and that is answering services and how funeral homes utilize answering services. So I have worked for a couple of different funeral homes, and not every single one that I have worked for has used or taken advantage of answering services, and there are a couple of different reasonings behind those decisions. Number one, the size of the funeral firm. Some funeral homes are very small operations and quite frankly aren't getting as many phone calls as larger funeral firms may be getting on a daily basis. So to them, they do not want to spend the money in order to have that service because it's more simple for them just to pick up the phone themselves. Another reason why some funeral firms may not want to use an answering service is because of the personalization that comes along with having an actual worker at that facility answer the phone and be able to answer any questions that callers may have. I did work for one firm particularly who did not have an answering service because since they were in operation from the time this family business started, anytime somebody called, they got a member of that family and they liked that special touch. Now, there are a lot of reasons why funeral firms also use answering services, and sometimes it is the pure volume of calls that come in. One thing I want people to keep in mind as this video goes on is that funeral directors are people, and sometimes a funeral firm is so large and so many calls are coming in that if somebody were constantly having the business phones hooked up to their cell phone, they would have no personal life whatsoever because all that they would be doing is answering those phone calls. So it's super important in some instances to utilize services like this just so the funeral directors can take a step back from the business and try to enjoy family time when it's possible. Another instance where a funeral firm may have to use an answering service is if they don't have somebody available to answer a call when they are in a position to not answer the phones themselves. For instance, if a funeral director is on a funeral service in a church setting, their phone cannot be ringing during those services and they can't really tell like a priest or a minister, hey, hold on 1 second so I can take this phone call. They are completely dedicated to the family that's in front of them, making certain that those services go off without a problem. So I do know certain funeral directors who transfer their phones to an answering service during those times when they may not be able to answer them right away. Now, if you're a family who's looking to call a funeral home and if you get an answering service, there's a couple of things that you can expect. Number one, I do not know why, but the people who work for answering services always sound like they work for an answering service. So keep that in mind, that there may be like a little bit of a robotic tone to their voice. I'm sure it's just them trying to be very professional, but sometimes it's like, is this a person or are you an answering service? So they may not always have like that super homey, super calm voice when you are dealing with an answering service. Number two, they are going to have no idea who you are or the conversations that you have had prior. So if you already came in for the day to make arrangements with a funeral director and you went through the whole services, and if you call back and say, oh, I'm the daughter of Mrs. Smith, well, that answering service is not going to know that you came in earlier in that day. They're not going to know that you have a relationship with the funeral director, and they're not going to treat you like they're very very personal because they want to make certain that they are getting the information from you that they need to so they can pass the message along. So you call a funeral home and an answering service answers the phone. Basically, they are going to be asking you a ton of questions. Number one, what is your name? They're going to ask you most likely how to spell your name as well. Number two, what is a good phone number for the funeral director to give you a call back on? And number three, the reasoning for your call. If you're just calling to follow up on a couple of different services, they're going to take that message from you. For instance, you may tell the answering service that you're just looking to check the progress on your mom's death certificate. They'll take that message and then they'll page it over to the funeral director. If, however, the reason why you're calling is because you have to report a death call to the funeral director, they are going to gather so much more information from you. They are also going to be getting the name of your loved one. They're going to get the location of your loved one. If they're at home, a hospice center, a nursing facility, or a hospital. They may ask you also to repeat the address of that place. And little side note, sometimes answering services aren't in the township where you are located. So they may ask you how to spell Buffalo, New York. And you may be thinking to yourself, we're in Buffalo, New York. How do you not know how to spell that? It's because a person who's taking those phones may be in California and they just want to make certain that they have all accurate information so that they can give the best message to the funeral director. After those key parts of information, they may go on to give you some information that the funeral home has asked them to give to people who may be reporting death calls. For instance, how long you may expect for a phone call back from the funeral director. Typically, answering services don't get too into the details only because they want to make sure that they have the contact information and pass it all along to us so we can then take the steps that we need to take to make certain that everything is going along smoothly. Working for different funeral homes who use answering services and who don't use answering services, I do have to say that there are pros and cons to both. A pro is when I answered the phones instead of having an answering service was that every single time somebody called, I was able to speak directly to them and hopefully answer the questions that they may have had. Sometimes it's such a silly question why people are calling, and it's more of a hassle almost to give them a call back than to just pick up the phone then and there. But you know, there are cons as well. I mean, I may be down to dinner with my family and the phone is ringing and I have to excuse myself to go and answer that. So there really are pros and cons, and each funeral firm is going to weigh those out differently. I will say that I enjoy working for a funeral firm more when there is an answering service in place, because I am somebody who has struggled with depression and compassion fatigue, and I really need to work personally in order to have separation from my home and my work life. So if I can have an answering service where they're kind of weeding through the calls that are urgent and not as urgent, and if I can kind of push off those not urgent calls until the next morning when I'm in the office instead of giving my daughter a bubble bath that night, it's just helping my mental state so much better. Once again, please keep in mind that we are human. Funeral directors have families and social lives, and just we need time to decompress and not be stressed out always because of work, because this is not a 9-to-5 job where once we get home we are done for the day and we get to relax. We do realize that there are instances where our attention is needed right away. For instance, if a death call does come in. And we are not afraid to work outside of normal business hours, but if opportunities present itself where we can somewhat live a little bit of a normal life, we're going to take advantage of those opportunities. And answering services really can be amazing tools for us to use. If you call a funeral home and you get an answering service, don't be upset at them. Just know that this is something that they are using for numerous reasons, and hopefully that answering service does take good care of you. So I hope this video explains explain answering services and kind of what to expect a little bit more to all of you. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want, I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe to this channel. It helps me out every single time somebody comments, subscribes, and likes. So thank you all so much for your support. And I will see you all next week, Wednesday.